This scene takes place in the southwestern city of Rostov in Russia, which serves as the logistical hub for the Russian military's operations in Ukraine. The surrounding military forces are not comprised of Ukrainian soldiers but rather members of the Wagner Group. The Wagner Group is a private military company owned by Prighozin, a close ally of Vladimir Putin. This raises the question, why was the Wagner's group military present in Russia when they should be fighting alongside the Russian military in Ukraine? Many have characterized this situation as a potential military coup prompted by a video released by Prigozhin on the evening of June 23. In the video, he accuses the leadership of the Russian military of killing Wagner Group soldiers and pledges to march to Moscow to dismantle the alleged nefarious plans of Russian military.
За наш суверенитет и независимость.
In response to Prigozhin's claims, Vladimir Putin has issued an aggressive statement. However, despite Putin's warning, Prigozhin's troops persist in their journey towards Moscow. The situation intensifies as the Russian military and the Wagner Group approach a potential direct confrontation, especially when the Wagner troops are merely 200 km away from Moscow. However, a significant event of turns occurs when the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov announces that the Wagner Group and the Putin have reached a truce.
As the advance started, the mercenaries began retreating.
Reports emerged suggesting that Prigozhin has struck a deal with the Russian military, resulting in the Wagner troops being ordered to return to their base camp. In the aftermath, Prigozhin relocates to Belarus, a crucial ally of Russia. The coup, which unfolded rapidly, raises questions about its swift resolution within a span of less than 24 hours. What truly transpired in Russia? Who is Prigozhin and what are his motivations? In 2014, Russian forces took control of Crimea and became involved in the conflict of Ukraine's Donbas region. During this time, unidentified soldiers wearing green uniforms, known as Little Green Men, appeared to support the Russian troops. It is now believed that these soldiers were Wagner Group operatives deployed on the ground for the first time. The Wagner Group, led by Prigozhin, has become an essential tool for Russia's global strategy, serving various purposes including diverting attention from activities that the Russian government wants to keep hidden. One of the main roles of the Wagner Group is to provide weapons and military services to countries with which Russia has a military technical agreement. Initially indistinguishable, the Wagner Group has since established a recognizable brand through its emblems, insignia, and online presence. This visibility has shed light on three strategies employed by the group in executing Russia's covert operations worldwide. The Wagner Group specifically targets countries experiencing prolonged conflicts or weak governance with high levels of corruption. For example, in Syria, where a civil war broke out in 2011, President Assad sought Russian support to combat rebel groups. Wagner mercenaries subsequently appeared to assist government forces. Since then, Wagner troops have been observed in various countries, mostly during periods of instability, expanding their reach to at least 4 continents. In Africa alone, Wagner forces have been present in at least 18 different countries over the past decade. In these client states, the Wagner Group activities primarily involve training local militaries in reconnaissance and counter-insurgency tactics, often in a rough manner. The group's involvement is closely linked to military technical agreements and a cycle of debts and loans incurred by client states seeking to enhance their armies. The Wagner Group, operating through shell companies, receives payments in the form of valuable commodities such as oil, gold, or uranium, which are then converted into cash through money laundering schemes. These illicit activities extend throughout the continent, including Sudan, where the Wagner Group operates gold plants in exchange for weapons and training for Sudanese soldiers. This playbook has reportedly made Prigozhin a billionaire, and the Wagner Group has established legal headquarters in St. Petersburg. While Putin has denied direct links to the Wagner Group, Prigozhin has publicly acknowledged his involvement. Recent events such as the claimed victory in Soledar in January 2023 have led to increased scrutiny and sanctions against the group. Prigozhin's growing influence in projecting Russian power and his ability to attract highly skilled special forces operators with better pay has caused tensions between him and the military for several years. However, it was the Russian invasion of Ukraine, particularly the intense fighting in Bakhmut, where thousands of Wagner troops are believed to have lost their lives, that intensified Prigozhin's animosity towards the military elite. Prigozhin repeatedly directed his criticism towards top Russian military officials, specifically Defense Minister Mr. Shoigu and the head of the armed forces in Ukraine, Mr. Gerasimov.
Шойгу! Герасимов! Где боеприпасы?
Publicly accusing them of trying to take credit for Wagner's victories in cities like Soledar. where many paramilitary troops, often recruited from prisons, lost their lives. Prigozhin also claimed that they failed to provide adequate support to his troops. Last month, he even threatened to withdraw his forces from the city unless they were supplied with essential ammunition. In contrast to his bureaucratic counterparts, Prigozhin's outspoken and sometimes vulgar outbursts made him a figure that attracted significant media attention. Leaked documents revealed that the Russian Defense Ministry was uncertain about how to counter his messaging and growing popularity. Furthermore, Prigozhin not only criticized top military officials but also refused to comply with an order from the Russian Defense Ministry to sign a contract that would have placed Wagner directly under their control. Prigozhin boldly stated Shoigu cannot properly manage military formations. However, this decision would undoubtedly have triggered concern and suspicion in Prigozhin's mind. Being a seasoned political strategist, Mr. Shoigu wouldn't have taken control of Wagner without President Putin's approval. Prigozhin might have realized that despite the president tolerating his attention-seeking outburst and criticism of the special military operation for months, Putin had ultimately chosen to support his defense officials and sideline his former ally. A few days later, Putin himself gave his personal endorsement to the move, stating during a press conference in Moscow that it was a rational decision and needed to be implemented as swiftly as possible. Speculations are that this movement might mark the beginnings of Prigozhin's plotting for the rebellion. The Institute for the Study of War based in US suggests he likely took a gamble believing that his only option to keep the Wagner Group as an independent force was to confront the Russian Ministry of Defense. His troops quickly escalated their actions against the regular military, including the abduction of a Russian field commander whom they accused of opening fire on Wagner troops. On June 23, Prigozhin launched his most scathing criticism of the defense minister till date, going against the false narrative propagated by President Putin himself, claiming that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was to counter NATO and Nazis. Prigozhin unleashed his anger, asserting that the conflict was merely an opportunity for Mr. Shoigu to win more medals and obtain the ultimate military honor of being promoted to the rank of marshal. That very evening, less than 2 weeks after the Defense Ministry's announcement of their intention to take control of the Wagner Group, Prigozhin and his troops departed from Ukraine and captured the city of Rostov in Russia. However, Mr. Prigozhin stopped the advance after negotiations with the Kremlin, which were mediated by the Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko. Under the deal announced on 24 June by Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, Prigozhin will go into exile in neighboring Belarus along with Wagner troops which remain loyal to him. Charges against him of mounting an armed rebellion will be dropped. The government also said it would not prosecute Wagner fighters who took part, while those who did not join in were to be offered contracts by the defense ministry. Meanwhile, Prigozhin ordered his troops back to their field camps in Ukraine, where they have been fighting alongside Russian regular soldiers. Speculations are that Prigozhin reached an agreement with Putin, potentially securing concessions such as changes within the defense ministry. However, the truth of these claims remain uncertain. The question of who would replace Shoigu and Gerasimov is also unclear. One possible contender is General Sergei Surovikin, who was previously allied with Prigozhin but opposed his rebellion. What happens to Prigozhin himself is another matter. As a leader of Wagner, his decision is likely to stir discontent among hardline pro-war factions in Russia. Furthermore, the loyalty of Wagner personnel is in question, as they may be hesitant to sign contracts with the defense ministry. Another aspect shrouded in uncertainty is the preservation of Prigozhin's vast wealth. Recent reports suggest that a substantial amount of cash totaling £38 million was discovered during a raid on Wagner's headquarters. Prigozhin claimed that these funds were intended for compensating the families of fallen soldiers. Whether he will be allowed to retain his wealth remains to be seen. While the rebellion may have been quelled, the underlying issue persists. Russia is now home to around 10 private military companies, each with their own alliances among security officials, oil giants, and oligarchs. According to US State Department, Defense Minister Mr. Shoigu is set to control his own company, Patriot PMC, which directly competes with Wagner in Ukraine. These developments raise doubts about the loyalty of these groups to the Russian regime. The assumption that Putin's government is better equipped to endure a prolonged conflict in Ukraine than President Zelensky's government in Kyiv may now be called into question. Stay tuned as we continue to explore the intricate dynamics and potential ramifications of Prigozhin's rebellion and its aftermath.